Hey folks, and welcome to the Daily Ratings Podcast. It's a show where each week we're going to be sitting down with Vincent Daly to get his thoughts on the latest movies he's been watching. Both older films and new releases. And don't worry, there's no spoilers. Vince will give a brief review of the movie, share some thoughts, and of course, then rate the film. The daily ratings are always fair, honest, and most importantly, they're consistent. On today's show, Vince will be rating and reviewing. It is Danny Boyle week on the podcast, so we are jumping back to 1996 with Trainspotting. We're then doing 2008's Slumdog Millionaire. We have James Franco in 127 Hours. We have Steve Jobs from 2015. And finally, newly released, now in theaters, we have 28 Years Later. Again, all directed by Danny Boyle. Let's see what he has to offer. Let's see what Vincent Daly has to say about it. Stay tuned and enjoy the show. Mr. Vincent Daly, how are we doing across the table, my friend?
Thomas, how's it going?
It's going okay with me. How was your Danny Boyle week?
Well, it was a really good week, but also
heavy hitters.
Yeah, some heavy
Oscar-nominated films, well-loved films, well-known films.
This is actually, you could bring up a good point. This is probably cleaning up a lot of, 2010s Oscars that, just aren't on the site, aren't rated in any sort of way.
Slumdog Millionaire as well.
Yeah, that's a big one.
I don't know if Steve Jobs was really rated too much, but, I mean, it's Danny Boyle, and we haven't covered him a ton.
Right.
On the podcast, we did The Beach last year.
We did The Beach. We did Sunshine.
OG
28 Days Later.
Yep.
And I think that's
so this 5 is actually,
yeah.
After we cover this episode, Danny's going to be
pretty much done.
Looking
pretty
good.
Buttoned up.
There are a few in there, I think.
Yeah, there's like, he does like a kids movie, I think, somewhere in between there. And then just like movies that I really don't have too much interest in.
Well, Danny F's around. I mean, Danny is he's not a one genre guy. That's for sure. It's really not.
He's playing the field. The alternate title for this episode is making our minds up on Danny Boyle because he can't make his own mind up.
I don't know what to think of the guy. I'm going to do. Oh, I do have an apology to make from last week.
Okay.
I said it when I said it didn't feel right. When I heard it back, I was like, this is not right. I have to apologize for this.
Oh, okay.
So last week I said that Tom Hanks doesn't really get going until the 90s. And I feel terrible about that.
Wow.
I mean, you've got people love Big. And then some people, you like The Burbs. Some people like Splash.
Burb's good.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have Turner and Hooch. Some people love Turner and Hooch. And I just thought that was mean to say that to Tom Hanks.
Listen, I'll defend your former statement a little bit. I think it makes sense in this, like...
It's just that decade he has is
exactly.
Like, wow.
It's a spike.
Yes.
The difference between,
Right,
yes, he has a start, but is it the heights that he reaches?
1993 is the launch-off year.
Yeah.
In a major way. Anyway, just thinking about that.
Really, just rolling over every night leading to it.
Saying that now because I don't know how hard I want to go into Danny Boyle. There's elements I really like. I watched Trainspotting. I watched 127 Hours with you.
Okay. Yep.
I've seen Steve Jobs before.
Okay.
And I don't know. He's such a big name. Danny Boyle is like loved by so many, and you don't really hear anything bad about the guy or his films. And, just feeling a certain way about some of these movies.
Split. I'm with you. There's times that I really think his filmmaking choices, his editing choices specifically, they work. They fit, what the movie is going after, the energy of the movie, and they just work. Other times, though, he's making the same shots and missing by a wide margin. So I don't know if, honestly, besides... a few on this list. Honestly, I almost wish I would have gone for more divisive movies throughout his career to maybe illustrate that point a little bit more. But I am glad that we watched things like, heavy hitters like Trainspotting.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
excellent movies.
I do think we have a variety of just like where he goes. All these movies are different from each other.
Yeah,
I mean, if you think about if you actually think about it, the closest is 127 hours since Steve Jobs.
Yeah, because of like
kind of bio drama, whatever.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, so any opening notes for you before we start things off?
No, not really. Honestly, the only thing I would say is that just keep in mind that these are all very different films. There's not really a lot of connective tissue in between them, so it might be just a little bit of a longer episode. That's the only thing I'll say.
And we might be shitting on Danny in one film and then praising him in another.
yeah.
Who knows? Let's jump back to 1996. I thought it was 98. I think I said 98.
I thought it was 95. I have 95 marked down. Maybe that's British release?
Yeah, I think it's 90. I think the earliest release was 6.
Okay, all right.
Regardless, I'm pretty sure on the new show I said 98. I think I'm good for one falsehood on the new show.
I like that.
But just about one.
Well, actually, no, I don't like that.
Well, no.
I mean, a new show should be factual, but
it's usually nothing too major,
right?
It's
and we have the makeup later on in the week.
Looks like an 8. What are you gonna do? 1996. Everybody's very young.
Everybody's very young.
It's Trainspotting. I mean, I think everyone, whether you've seen the film or not, you know this film.
Oh, sure.
In some sort of way, or at least you heard about it. You know it hit somewhat, and it's just kind of become a part of culture. And let's get into it. Like I said, I watched it too. This is my first time ever watching it.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, you start. We'll take it back and forth. Set up the film for us.
Okay. Well, I mean, as only really the second film for Danny Boyle, he made his mark on, honestly, the very crowded landscape of directors in the 90s with a movie that has become one of the all-time classics. An all-time classic of the decade, I think, to your point as well, a name you just kind of know by this point.
You think it's bigger than cult following, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Even though maybe it started in that kind of cult following.
I think it did.
I feel like all kind of dark comedies have potential for that as well, just to latch on in a certain way. Mm-hmm. For my money, though, Trainspotting has always been one of the best movies about addiction ever made. Structured as a fun romp, this hits hardest when you least expect it and sinks to, honestly, impossible depths when you realize what our characters will do for a hit. While many movies in the 90s try to tackle drug problems with varying tones, Boyle was able to create a dark comedy that doesn't sacrifice its punch for really any individual punch line. And in comparison to the other more, we'll call them kind of more melodramatic projects on the same topic in their sights, drug use, addiction, everything like that. Maybe such as like Basketball Diaries with Leo or Requiem for a Dream, which we covered way back on the podcast. Boyle was able to achieve a look at what addiction is really about without big melodrama, without big arcs. If anything, I could see maybe, and maybe I'm curious of your first time watching this, if you were expecting so much more substance to the story where there really isn't. It's more about kind of the rhythm and the snaking through these characters' lives.
I'm actually really happy it was that.
Okay.
I stayed away from this because single time I almost sat down and wanted to watch it over the past, over the years.
Sure.
I don't love the drug room, waste your life away type of movies.
Okay.
And, and you always know one guy on drugs is going to be having, going off about some existential thoughts or beliefs or talking about the system in some sort of way.
Sure. And
it's just all depressing. It's never my vibe.
Right.
And I was really happy to see that this actually had way more punch and rhythm to it. It was a little bit of that, of course.
Right.
But it had speed in this movie. and more than I thought. So
Yeah, it's not like Requiem for a Dream at all, where it's like wallowing in misery. Right. There's a time and place for that. I like that movie.
Yep.
But I feel like too the drive of addiction, this movie matches that in its structure, in its pacing, and I feel like that's why it hits on
the chaoticness of it.
Yeah. That's why it's like it really is so much more than just like a comedy about drugs or something like that. Trainspotting is a Scottish crime dark comedy about one thing, and that is dope, smack, running through daisies, big H, or in other words, the most addictive substance in the world. As the iconic opening states, choose life, choose anything over a life as an addict, but why would anyone want to do a thing like that? We follow 5 rude lads, Renton, Sick Boy, Big B, Spud, and Tommy, stumbling through life on and off heroin, and always looking for a scheme to get ahead, even if it's only for a fleeting moment. Ewan McGregor plays our main lad, Renton, bouncing between sobering turnabouts and stints in rehab, only to land back in the velvet comfort of what he spikes into his veins. Whether it's their addictions or bloody fate, these mates are bound to stay together, destined to fuck up or fuck off before one of them goes a step too far. Honestly, I was trying to come up with maybe a little bit more substance for that summary, but
it doesn't need a big summary.
It doesn't, yeah. No. It really is about the movements of these characters, not like big arcs or anything like that. Or nothing really even like cinematic feeling, honestly. And that's where
I
say
what I like.
Oh, you did like that.
I don't need cinematic. Yeah, I don't need grandeur, cinematicness. I don't want the wallowing. I don't want the absolute depressive watching people waste their lives away.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
There's definitely a lot of that in here, but
yes,
it's how it's spun.
It has a movement, and it has Danny Boyle's quick scenes.
Yes.
You know, which I've starting to pick up on some of his DNA.
Yeah, absolutely.
In Boyle,
it's hard to because he just has such a wide range, but there's a lot here that you can see is the blueprint in this first movie or the second movie.
And I just think that although it's not this huge grandeur film, it is like a day in the life, a day or a month in the life of addicts, but he made it fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
As fun as it could be.
Yeah, right. I will say on this rewatch, as much as I'm walking away still saying this is still a must watch, man, do you have to have subtitles on for this?
I had no problem.
No, really?
I'm better at this than I think.
Oh, wow.
There's only one film I had to do that for. Which was Start Up. That's the only thing I've ever had to do that for.
Okay, similar kind of Cockney kind of.
That was rough. Start Up was tough.
Yeah, that was tough. I had a little bit of a doozy trying to figure out what one Scottish voice was saying, no less 5 of them. But I do think that's why I enjoy some of the comedy here, though. The closest thing I could compare it to is the comedian Limmy. Do you know Limmy?
Nope,
at all?
not at all.
He's a Scot. He almost had like a Chappelle Show type show, like a sketch show in the UK. And I don't know. For me, it works because it's so Scottish and so almost like emotion driven. Like, they're just off the lid, off the handle, out of nowhere. I think like it works for me or makes me laugh sometimes because sometimes I just can't understand what they're saying fully. So even if I'm not understanding the joke, it's just delivery. It's just pure like the energy of it. Yeah. Honestly, like a hysterical movie at times, a heartbreaking movie at times, but it's the balance of those two that make it such a enjoyable watch and like ripe for a rewatch as well. Back to what I was going to say with, I guess, like expectations of like, is this going to be like a big arc? What is like the story here? I feel like anything I've rated as a must watch maybe comes loaded with that. That's just like, oh, this is going to be something like really, it takes you on a journey. And this isn't representative of that.
No, it doesn't need to be. I mean, we used to say this all the time too. You can have a film like Whiplash and it can be really, really good.
Yep.
One of the most basic films, super quick to shoot.
Yep.
It's just, how do you make it happen?
Yeah.
It's that much more difficult to do, but I think it's also a big enough film as well. I will say, watching it for the first time, 30 years after it came out, it did feel great.
Yeah.
Like, I enjoyed myself thoroughly. I was even going to, I was going to pause it and run into the store at one point, in multiple points at the film, and I sat down once and didn't move until the movie was over.
That's great.
That's a good sign.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because where I was going to get ice cream, by the way.
and that's a big draw. That's as much of a draw as heroin is for Ewan McGregor.
So oh, I will say, though, I've been very good with my sweets. And Vin knows I'm usually a baked goods kind of guy.
Oh, for sure.
Right? Cake,
I ate strudels this weekend. You should have seen him tearing them down.
I had two strudels. But no, I have totally succumbed to nerd gummy clusters.
Oh, you really
it's
have?
Bad. It's bad. I mean, I've been doing okay, but I crave them.
It is.
Once in a while, I'm picking them up at the gas station. I have to say,
candy of the future.
It doesn't make me feel good, but boy,
it makes you feel good.
It's fantastic. Anyway, enjoyed the movie.
It's great. It's great. It kept your attention, and no nodding off either.
No, I was locked in.
Yeah, that's
great.
Great.
And that's the thing, for the size of the film, for just being Scottish and you're in these Scotland towns a little bit, it's all good.
Yeah,
feels great actually to be there.
Absolutely. Before watching all the movies this week, I really thought that this movie would have been the core of Danny Boyle's style, and I would have almost like seen it a little bit in everything. But honestly, I feel like that's a much harder quality to pin down for just how much range he has. I mean, there are easy answers like editing or different camera tricks that he likes to use repeatedly, but that's really hard to pin down because all 5 of these movies are like drastically different, even though there might be like some overlap there.
Because I saw, there's overlap, at least for Trainspotting 127 hours.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, like you said, editing stuff, editing tricks. And we even said some of this stuff. Now, Sunshine makes a little bit more sense to me.
Oh, really?
With some of the shots.
Interesting.
Well, sometimes when things are really going and had like that stop motion, we both thought like our TV was breaking at one point.
What's going on here?
And it's like, oh no, this is like a thing that Danny Boyle does.
He's trying something new again. The man needs to stop innovating. But for my original thought, kind of walking into Trainspotting specifically, that trademark for this film was a match of imaginative crafting scenes and a soundtrack to keep it moving. And honestly, that is a recipe for success many pure directors use in this decade. Straight up, though, this really does have one of my favorite and I think one of the best soundtracks of the 90s, specifically for the thematic use of strung out icons like Lou Reed and Iggy Pop in it. I mean, it's a little bit more of just like, let's play the jukebox hits of the era.
Yeah.
No, these are almost like the heroin hits of like what these characters' soundtrack would be. The mix of these upbeat songs and thematic lyrics, honestly, usually half the time about heroin in the first place, creates countless iconic moments that really will burn yourself into your mind. I'm not joking. Some of my favorite and most inspirational shots come from this movie, and all of them paired with just excellent music. My favorite shot in the whole movie comes from Lou Reed's Perfect Day as Ewan McGregor sinks into the literal velvet carpet of his overdose. Like many moments in Renton's story, though, it's heartbreaking because you see the legitimate good he's running away from. You see the turnaround. Running away from that is heartbreaking, even though the scene itself is almost structured as a release, as a wow, thank God I got out of there type of moment for the character. The track Lust for Life gives us one of the snappiest openings to the film, but twists the knife on the fun we see our characters having in the beginning by giving us the context later on in the movie. All of these scenes really highlight Boyle's imagination to take things a bit surreal here, and within an otherwise realistic movie. Those moments where reality breaks a little bit is what I love to see and what always makes this a great rewatch, especially with someone that hasn't seen it before. I mean, there's a scene where he jumps into the toilet and he's swimming all of a sudden. It's just like, what is this? But it's so imaginative. It's great. I really do love it to death. But folks, I mean, this is a movie I have loved and a classic case of something I never thought I would have had to explain or intellectualize for why I feel it's a must-watch, but it absolutely holds up at the score I gave it, and seriously, was a joy to revisit within a week that just has huge range for our director spotlight. I would say give it a watch if you haven't, and if you have, give it a watch again. We're going to go ahead and give Trainspotting 1996 an 85.
85%.
A must-watch. It was at an 85. It holds at an 85.
Yeah, and I think rightfully so. I didn't feel like this one was going to budge too much, because this has been on the site for, forever.
A good while.
This was an early rating that we get this. Pre-podcast, of course, obviously.
Yeah.
So it's been rated for a while, and it just felt right, because I knew that you were a fan of this film.
Oh, yeah.
And have been, like you said.
And it's so different in the landscape of movies about addicts, movies about heroin. We covered earlier on the podcast Sid and Nancy.
Yeah.
Already mentioned Requiem for a Dream. There are a lot of ways to tackle this, but none of them tackle it like Trainspotting. And for better or worse, it's an entertaining movie around this while still having, a punch to the subject matter.
Which is why I was happily surprised.
Yeah.
And again, first time watching it, 30 years later, I was still super locked in and enjoyed myself. For anybody listening who's like, I don't know, I get it, Trainspotting.
Sure.
No, definitely watch it.
Yeah,
definitely give it a
absolutely.
watch.
And you bring up a great point because, it could so easily be one of those movies where you say, oh, I know it's great, and you kind of move
for
on.
sure.
The
Yep.
Godfather effect,
Yes, exactly.
You got to move on with your day, but really make some time for this. It's definitely
Excellent.
worth it.
So a must-watch, and 85% for Trainspotting. I know you can get it on Amazon, rent it at other places as well. Okay, now, Vin.
Yeah, the only difficulty I had was Slumdog Millionaire.
You had really?
Yeah, I had to rent it on Voodoo.
Oh,
I was like, I got to take off my credit card off of there.
wow, I wonder if it's available on Apple or Google or something like that.
Yeah.
Wow, because Oscar-winning film, too.
Yeah.
But before we get to Slumdog Millionaire, Vin.
Okay.
Before we do that, we have to take a moment because there is a surprise in this.
What?
Yeah, Vin doesn't know. Folks at
Are we
home,
playing Who Wants to
Vin
Be a
doesn't
Millionaire?
know. But we have to take a second because Slumdog Millionaire is...
Your 2000th movie.
Whoa! Oh, my God.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Vincent Daly.
Wait, who were going
Over
was that
a
just your voice
decade,
pitching?
over a decade in the making, dedication unmatched, time and talent unsurpassed, a craft brought back to life
Wow.
many years ago. Ladies and gentlemen, Vincent Daly has reached his 2000th movie. Slumdog Millionaire. Why not? Why not, Nick?
Why not?
Thousands more to come, as Vin and I are not giving up on this, but it is our
Wow.
2000s. Because I know I'm the only one who holds the numbers on this.
yeah, it's true.
So I know what the deal is.
It's true. Wow. Wow.
Any thoughts?
Listen, to the next 2000.
To the next
That's great.
2000. Here, I say.
Wow, but we're really up to 2000 on the site.
Slumdog Millionaire. When I post Slumdog Millionaire,
Wow.
it will be the 2000th film. Which
Unbelievable that you've made this.
Only the
backing
accordion
tracks.
version, absolutely.
It's still going. Who were the voices? Did you just pitch shift your own voice?
yeah, it's just me.
Okay.
I mean, come on. It's the same thing as Name That Movie Game.
Right.
Just a handsome devil. But cool. I don't know if you thought we hit 2000 already. Honestly, don't know where you knew we were in the numbers.
Yeah, honestly, no, yeah.
I've been quiet about it as I've seen it approaching.
Absolutely. Totally out of left field. But, well, I'm glad it wasn't like Megan 2 or something like that.
It's true.
you know?
It's true. This is an Oscar film.
Yeah.
Old Danny Boyle hitting it up. So I just think it's a good mile marker. I think when we launched the Daily Ratings podcast, I think we were at a little over 700. No, that couldn't have been. Well, there's a weird thing because we launched this site and started recording because
Yes.
we wanted like 20 shows kind of to hit the ball running.
Yep.
So maybe in 2021 we were around 700 something when we went live,
Sure.
which was roughly late February, March of 2022. Sorry. I think I'm sticking to the red velvet carpet now. Just losing myself in
In the accordion.
auld lang syng. The Japanese man playing the accordion. So, anyway, congrats, Finn. Congrats on 2000.
Hey, thanks.
We started
Congrats to
this-
you.
Very embarrassed to say, I don't know how much we've ever talked about this, more in the beginning of the podcast. Vin and I were we actually don't know when this started. When we
Right.
started sitting down and doing movie ratings.
Yep.
Actually had no idea. I think the oldest document I found, because the original one I started, I think was gone. I accidentally deleted. I think the oldest document I found was from early 2013.
Wow. That's crazy.
Which puts us at 12 and a half years.
Yeah.
12 and a half years.
in the oven.
And just so you know, folks, obviously, again, we kind of went live in spring or late winter of 2022. And that just goes to show for how many years Vin and I would just get together once in a while, once a month, once every 3 months.
Talk about movies.
And Vin would sit on one couch, I sit on the other. What did you watch? And it was kind of like the podcast, but way shorter.
Yeah.
And you'd give and we were just stockpiling.
I was maybe a little bit rougher with the scores. I think already 3 years in, I've been kind of smoothed out a little bit.
Well, I still think there's a consistency to you. I really do. I mean, and you see it with how many, now that we're having a lot of new films films that we're covering. Because before it was like, what have you seen? What are you seeing? What
Sure.
older stuff?
Yep.
And you're purposely going for good films usually.
Yeah.
Meaning we were heavy in the 70s. And it's like, oh, are we 70s heavy? Is that kind of what we are? Is that where we lie? But no, because now that we're covering new films for the past 3 years, there's a range.
Yeah.
There's a range.
Absolutely.
So anyway, congrats, Vin. 2,000 films. Like you said, another 2,000 and many, many more thousands to come.
Thanks.
And
wow, honestly unexpected.
on to 2008 Slumdog Millionaire. Like I said, Oscar winning film.
Yeah.
Totally,
Sweep too.
That's right.
I think like 10 wins. I want to say.
Yeah, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Very young Dev Patel in this. Jump into it. What is the premise of the film, and how'd you like it?
Well, I think the premise is probably the biggest hook I can give for the film, especially if you haven't seen it. I have not seen this, even though like this is right around the time I was pretty much like watching everything I could.
I'll be honest, I could have sworn you could.
Yeah.
I was like, did I type it in wrong to the website? I was like, come on now, we've covered that. We must have.
That was the same shit I was doing when I was trying to find it on Amazon. I was like, am I typing Slumdog wrong? Like... But I don't know.
No, fresh eyes here. Fresh
eyes. And honestly, Tom, if there was a movie to illustrate the shifts in style that can happen when a director isn't their own writer for their project, it's Danny Boyle directing this movie. I mean, it is really out of the huge range. This is one end of the spectrum for sure. This is
all right.
Probably the farthest end of the spectrum of what he's covered. Folks, as much as we've talked about writer-director combos always kind of being a certain recipe for success, clearly there are other methods to produce a critical darling. With this movie absolutely sweeping the 2009 Oscars, with a whopping 8 wins, not 10 wins. Woo. I think it's maybe 11 nominations or 10 nominations and 8 wins. I won't rain on this movie's parade and say it was an off year or maybe low competition year. This really was like a sweep of sweeps. No one expected this coming out of Danny Boyle. No one really expected a tone of this movie either. Slow year or not, this project paid off to be one of the most unique films in all of Danny Boyle's varying catalog, and having never saw it, really was a perfect pick for this week's 5 slot. Slumdog Millionaire is not what the genres say they are. I'm telling you, I have a real big problem with whatever genres they're saying this was. I would call this a coming-of-age, rags-to-riches romance. It's adapting a book called Q&A, that gives us a kind of a game show skeleton to tell the story of a young boy. Not all of these, but a lot of these are based off of books this week, especially this, 127 Hours, and then Steve Jobs. I haven't read any of them, so I don't know how closely they represent those original books. That's where Boyle is finding some success. Shockingly, though, Slumdog Millionaire gives us a brutal and unflinching look at India's slums, with honestly what will almost scare you with how unsettlingly real it feels. I bring this up because even today, the film is described as a Bollywood-inspired feel-good movie, and I cannot tell you how much I was not feeling good watching this. This is a disparaging look. This is a scary look at India's slums and children growing up in those slums. And the only thing that felt remotely Bollywood-inspired is the credit sequence having a dance scene.
Sure.
But that's about it. I mean, I was almost expecting there to be musical scenes in this, a la like RRR. I mean, we really haven't dived into serious Bollywood movies or anything.
You're expecting musical scenes throughout the film?
Because they're saying it was like a Bollywood-inspired movie, but like very loosely, no. I mean, this is not what I know to be Bollywood, which is like an intermix of music and whatever genre they want to tackle. This was very serious, very almost heartbreaking at a lot of times, and I cannot tell you how much of a bone I had to pick with calling this a feel-good movie. It was unreal. Even on like the DVD cover, they're calling it a feel-good movie. No, it was some false advertising. As a contestant on the Indian version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, Dev Patel plays Jamal, a struggling youth trying to make it in a country with just countless others trying to do the exact same thing. For a story, We flash in between his time on the game show and the moments he has growing up that matters most. What initially appears to be incredible luck actually ties very personally into his upbringing, his life experiences somehow granting him the exact answers he needs to climb the rungs of each question. These glimpses into his past, however, grant us a frightening look at his childhood, impoverished beyond belief, and always dodging a life of crime with no better options to resort to. Who knows where he would be without the few relationships he has that occasionally are more of a burden than they are a benefit, but just maybe all of that is written as his karmic destiny. I was going to say, Tom, 1 million rupees, that's only about 11 grand. That's not, who wants to be a millionaire? Who wants to be like, I don't know.
They said 1 million rupees?
Get a really juicy tax return. But no, it's not 1 million rupees, it's 20 million rupees, which is around like 230K. So a little bit better, but
goes far in India.
That's what I was gonna say. I mean, not to make light of it, but I was just like, Christ, like, please spend it on plumbing. Like, the bathroom situation is a nightmare for these children. Like, I don't wish this on my worst enemy. This is like, I need privacy.
So 2 gross bathroom scenes.
Yeah, exactly.
For this week. Wow.
Interesting. Maybe Danny Boyle that's a hidden trademark.
That could be a compilation on the site.
Gross
worst bathroom scenes.
Potty mouth scenes. But yeah, it's just that really honestly almost distracted me for the whole film, because as he's climbing the rungs to 1 million rupees, I was like, oh, is it over? I was just like, oh, no. I'm going to 20 million. Okay, I see. It's a little adjusted there. I really think Danny Boyle did an excellent job with this, mostly because I think I kind of didn't expect him to do a great job. I obviously knew the hype around this movie. I didn't understand how far stylistically this would be from any project of his, and still he brought so much quality. I feel like in that sense, I mean, this was almost a must-watch this week for the slots, because, like, I don't see you don't get any farther from Trainspotting than Slumdog Millionaire.
Right. I mean,
it's all over the map.
He's all over the map,
and he still has that quality. I mean, there's still something.
Well, threw a zombie movie in there too. Yeah. I mean, come on.
It's all over the place. I think this movie really works though, because it's the layering of Jamal's backstory into each of the quiz questions. It's just such a satisfying outline to the movie, and don't get me wrong, it's simple, but you take notice of this structure right away, that we get one question, it ties back to a flashback, and somewhere within that flashback, we get the answer to the question. A real satisfying structure, maybe a loud structure, maybe a little bit too bold.
Yeah.
But just really nice, satisfying to unpack, and it makes you become curious what insight we'll get with the next random quiz question or something like that. Also, leave it to a Brit to tell an authentic Indian story, but this seriously holds no punches, showing how frighteningly rough these kids have it growing up in the slums. I mean, seriously, the moments that show this best in the story are always when adults are getting involved with the kids, and almost like some of the darker implications in something like the Florida Project.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
While our children characters might not understand the danger they're in, it feels all the more real and scary for the viewer to understand the context. And that, I mean, that was very gripping in the first half. For all of the questions tying back to childhood backstories for Jamal, it was almost like, Christ, I don't know how low this is going to go. I don't know how, like, dark this is going to go. And that was a really great hook watching this movie. Again, by no means would I call this a feel-good movie for that reason.
Yeah, for sure.
Even by the end credits. But it's this harsh realism that is the exact selling point for why you should check out this film even today. I really don't regret watching this at all. And in that sense, I feel like kind of putting myself in the shoes of 2008, 2009, why this swept it's because you're kind of maybe you're walking in expecting like a Bollywood musical kind of mixed genre, and it hits so hard and so real instead.
Yeah.
A lot of this is benefited from on-site locations, on-site shooting. I would compare it to almost the type of scenes we get when films are adapting like Brazilian slums. It's almost it's hard to wrap your mind around. Not in like an overly empathetic way, but it's just like, how is this real? Almost.
You also want to get the true feeling of it. I think it's tough for. I mean, and that's what makes a good director, but going into a place and trying to actually get the real vibe of it. Not just like, okay, how do we make this Hollywood? How do we make this a movie?
Yep.
It's more so, no, I want to get that. If someone who was born here had to make this film, what is the feeling that he would want to invoke? What would he want to include? That kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
I love when we see this, when a director you would think wouldn't have a chance in hell to make some type of authentic film like
For
this.
real.
Britain, like India doing that.
Yep.
We talked about it before with Taste of Things. We have a Vietnamese guy doing an
great
18th century French cooking show.
Yep.
You could say the French guy doing Amelia Perez, with varying degrees of success on that.
Varying degrees of success.
But it's,
Great examples, though.
Right, and it's cool when it happens. It's cool when it hits.
Absolutely.
Of course, I mean, Danny Boyle just made a comment the other day saying that he thinks that there is cultural appropriation with the film, and it's just like, oh, it's okay, like take it off then, like, just like don't go make it, win the 8 awards, and then like retcon your feelings on it. Just shut up.
yeah. No one was saying that in 2008. But I think there is a lot of authenticity in the production as well. Dev Patel, believe he's British primarily as an actor, but obviously Indian descent. He might have started in British TV. I believe he was in the British TV run of Skins, but this is really his big break, especially for how much Oscar buzz this got. Actually, probably the only shame is that he doesn't get a nomination at the Academy Awards. He gets a nomination nearly every other award ceremony that is out there. He himself is not in the Academy's nominations. Dev uses this as a springboard into his full career, which now you see him directing his own projects as well as continuing to act. I think also tied to the production, it's where our co-director, Loveleen Tandon, I believe you pronounce it, she comes into play. She was acting as a casting director for the project, and just a huge, almost impossible to wrap your head around amount of extras in this film is just so impressive. Mm-hmm. And I think, without the choices made in casting extras and in casting effective kid versions of who we see grow up to be our real actors, all of that first half would have been a lot weaker. And that's where I would almost counter Boyle's own point about cultural appropriation. I feel like there are steps especially in Loveleen being the casting director, at real attempts to kind of connect with what they're filming. You know?
I mean, I would agree too. When I look through the credits and I look at all the names and everything like that, I didn't see it, but I think, I mean, that's cute that, again, it's cute that you say that, but like, you're going to give back the 8 Oscars.
Right. You're going to give back 8 Oscars,
you know what
8
I mean?
of them? Come on. Also, one like very small production note, but a heartwarming one, is the 3 kids that play the younger versions of our characters in this. They were all very young at the time. Their money for the movie and any residuals that they were making were all put into a trust fund for them and give it to them when they turn 16. I think they're 16 by now, so I don't really know the update on it. It seemed like the film production really took care of the many kid actors they were using.
Very good.
There was really not anything there that was exploitive at all. So, besides my gripes with the genre this movie was marketed around, I thought this was an excellent film. Its story structure is satisfying to unpack, piecing together Jamal's life and seeing how incredible odds against him in every sense of the word never stopped him from doing what he knew was right. And maybe the universe is just rewarding him for that alone. We're going to go ahead and give Slumdog Millionaire 2008 a 74.
Okay, 74%. That's good that you enjoyed yourself. I didn't know where you're going to come down on that. Especially after, not quite 20 years, but approaching 20 years on it. And what was the hype about, you know, and how good was it? I love that you were you enjoyed it. I mean, 74, that's a very good film.
Yeah. It's interesting to come across these, and it's going to be a dwindling list because I've seen a lot of these, 2000s to 2010s. Interesting in just the same way that it's a challenge not to see a movie that we watch from the 80s or the 50s as like, oh, this is how it was in the 50s. I'm kind of experiencing a little of that with the 2000s.
It's kind of funny. Isn't that funny?
Yeah. So, interesting, though.
So, do you still think that Slumdog Millionaire should have beat out The Dark Knight at the Oscars?
So, was The Dark Knight actually nominated, or was it just Heath Ledger?
No, exactly. It wasn't nominated. But
Yeah.
what I'm saying is, it's a Dune 2 situation where The Dark Knight settles all the problems.
Listen, I love The Dark Knight. maybe.
Well, that was the biggest hubbub, correct?
Yeah.
That The Dark Knight was not nominated for Best Picture.
And Heath Ledger posthumously, won the Best Supporting. So, yeah, I don't know. Tough year.
No, you do know.
I do know. I don't want to say it, though.
Yeah, The Dark Knight is the better film, and The Dark Knight should have got the Oscar. Definitely should have been nominated.
I'll let the score speak on that one.
Well, that's what triggered. But back then, they had only 5 movies in the category.
Oh, right.
That's what triggered the 10th film.
Really?
Oh, the blowback for that year was unreal.
Wow.
Yeah, but good for Danny Boyle. Okay, 74% for Slumdog Millionaire. Let's jump ahead 2 years. 2010. This is 127 hours. It's James Franco. A lot of James Franco.
A lot.
We watched this together. Again, a totally different vibe change.
Yeah.
We're going from the slums in India to the open desert and Utah canyons.
Yeah.
So get into 127 hours, and we'll take it back and forth.
Well, flashback to 2010, and James Franco was in a pretty big stride for his career, of course, all because before his canceling mid-decade. But while projects like that Wizard of Oz spinoff that we covered a while back might have been foreshadowing his decline, this was just smack dab in the middle of his mainstream fame. Danny Boyle found himself in a similar position with fame as well, without being canceled around the corner. Maybe that's why he's trying to make up for Slumdog Millionaire or something. Coming off the critical darling of Slumdog Millionaire, Boyle had directed one of the most unique films he's done to date, and raised the question, what the hell would he do next? Well, turns out, not only did he want to do something scaled down and kind of character focused, but he had been trying to adapt this true story for over 4 years. And his initial pitch of this, believe it or not, being an action movie where a guy can't move.
Mm-hmm.
He thought that was a good elevator pitch. He thought that was a good hook. I don't think that sounds great at all.
Oh, I think the movie execs?
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, we haven't done that before. But I'm really not sure that we got that in the final product, especially the action movie vibe, as this is a lot more internal and psychological than I expected. But it nonetheless was another hit for Boyle, garnering a total of 6 Oscar nominations in a very competitive year for movies now. This was no slack this year at the Oscars. And those 6 nominations did not produce a single win either. 127 hours feels like it's fighting its own gimmick the whole runtime, however. Certainly creating a harrowing experience, both physically and mentally, but kind of a movie you see once and honestly you never really see again. This is a survival movie based on the true story of Aaron Ralston, based off of his 2004 book. I believe it's just called Rock in a Hard Place, which is like, I can't tell if that's low-hanging fruit or a really good opportunity. Splitting time between its survival, problem-solving, and maybe a little bit more into the internal struggle of waiting around for death. Within Utah's vast Canyonlands National Park is a sculpted beauty that creates many a hidden and dangerous path, explored by only the most adventurous climbers. James Franco, playing Ralston, is one of those risk takers, and without much insight into his motivation or drive to do so, he sets out at the crack of dawn with the spirit of adventure behind him. One slight stumble, though, is enough to upend his whole trip, however, and spliced into his slow agony are his inner thoughts, with nothing left to do but let his mind wander to fantasy, to desire, and most importantly, to regret, drifting further from the reality he desperately needs to escape. Originally researching this, I was expecting to find Boyle comment on his filmmaking choices here. Because boy, are they're loud. Yeah. We get some extreme biking, some extreme climbing, and some extreme editing choices all over this thing. To the point that, like, honestly, the only thing I compare it to, even within this week of Danny Boyle, is our new release, 28 Years Later. I mean,
Okay.
That is how extreme these two films are in all of its editing and all of the filming techniques. I really do think this is a perfect example of Boyle not giving his movies a moment to breathe, though, and everything needing a unique camera shot or an innovation or kind of breaking his own mold that he's setting for himself. I think for earlier projects like Trainspotting and Slumdog, that same approach matches their energy with his filmmaking techniques, something that we will return to for 28 Years Later as well. But for this movie, even though that style, I would say, is still a match for the energy. You know, I think of the opening shots of just like, you know, setting out on the mountain biking, and, you know, that needs to have energy to it. But at the same time, there is just a total barrage of editing techniques, digital techniques used, and it just becomes a bit overkill, honestly. I think you're on the same page there.
I think my biggest problem is that from the get-go, what he wanted to do was do an action movie with a guy that can't move. And because you obviously have very still moments, and then what he wants to do is cut in very fast pace, do certain edits, make it more intense and more intense, and try. And it's like, okay, you're trying to balance out what would most people consider boring with high intensity, high octane stuff. And I almost would rather just make it what it actually is and what it was, and give me solemn, give me quiet. I want to feel left alone with this guy. I don't want to constantly, let us sink into a scene. And he doesn't let you do that too much, because we're going off to this, we're dreaming about this. We have to change a cut. We have to change this. We have to do crazy edits. And it's almost like, just stop. I get it. The guy gets trapped, and then we're just with the guy. But maybe that's what the movie should be.
Maybe that's the pitch itself.
So that was I can't shake that. I can't shake that. That actually there's a much more solemn. You should basically walk away from this beaten down in a way, or at least throughout it have a lot of the Into the Wild type vibes that you get off of that. And this, because of the broken upness of it, I can't shake that there's just a better movie by actually making it more serious, kind of.
And now, still would give him the opportunity to do these psychological, kind of side stories.
Because I'm sure the character was losing his mind, too. So that is important to show what actually happened, like to get as true as you can. And then the only other thing is just the way it is shot, especially in the beginning, as we're getting going, the bike shots and this, the music choices, it feels like a relatively fine 2003 movie.
Okay.
And this took place in 2003.
True story.
And I hated it at first. It's just like, why is he being such a basic bitch? Like, honestly, why is it just so, come on. But then I thought about it, it's just like, wow, was he actually just kind of going for a more 2003 film style?
Sure.
We get all the tech in the movie. It's 2003. Everything about it's 2003. But the way it's actually filmed feels like it's a decade older than when it actually came out. So I don't know whether to be impressed with that or not. I know visually, and me watching the film, I wasn't grabbing me at all. And I was like, okay, here we go. I just wasn't connecting with the film on this one.
That's a great point, because I think there is some good and some bad in that approach. Like, I can maybe respect the idea of it, but in execution, it's just like, I still don't like watching
simple.
This. I mean, everything from triple split screen to picture-in-picture to freeze frames. I mean, it really just feels like he was using every possible choice to capture a 2000 era footage. Which, again, I mean, the story itself is happening in 2003. He does have a handy cam. There is a creative vision there, but in execution, just not. We were both really not digging it that much.
Yes.
Yeah. Speaking of not digging it, though, as for the survival story itself, I would really like to hand it over to you, Tom, so you can skewer both Franco and the real dude on how he could have got himself out of this.
Listen, okay, you can put this on me. Go ahead, put this on me.
All movie. All of
a sudden, the guy hits 2001 films. He's going to take it easy. Now, gives the dirty work to me. I get it. I'll be your hitman, sure. I've got some issues. Now, it's my understanding that Boyle really wanted to he wanted to follow what really happened with the guy.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I know he was talking with the guy. The book is a thing. The book is around. And so I was getting really frustrated with Franco. I was getting really frustrated with Franco in the film, and Vin kind of just kept on saying, it's like, it's not Franco, you're getting mad at the actual guy.
yeah, we're dangerously close to shitting on the real guy.
And I think I was shitting on the real guy a little bit. It's just a frustration. I thought there was a work ethic problem.
A work ethic?
A little bit, and I just thought there was some common sense stuff to do that he didn't do.
Sure.
And I understand the panic and maybe the desperation, the dehydration.
Oh, yeah, that's a big factor.
Has effects, but a lot of things should have been worked out in the first 8 hours. And it was getting a little frustrated. Get a little frustrated to watch that movie because it's like, I mean, again, I'm not going to go hard on this.
I want you to go hard.
I know. You want me to skewer the
I want you to actually break down every method and how it could have been better.
I was pointing it out, folks. I had some issues with the logic of it.
Oh, man.
But it was a real guy, and he survived, so that's good. But, there was just frustration while watching the film. That's all.
Well, listen, I think it's valid in the sense that, the context here is that we're dealing with, like, a very seasoned hiker-climber. I feel like any piece of knowledge you were pulling from would have easily been, like, first thoughts for him as well, but
it's... I'm just gonna bite my tongue.
No,
no. This is the one time. This is the one time I feel like I need to go easy on this guy.
We're going to get Aaron on an interview. And you're going to have to say to his face that you wouldn't.
The words, and I don't know who said it. I don't even know if it was me or Vin, but the words were said in the room. I don't know if it was me. I feel like I could have got out of that.
So good. Oh man,
that's it. That's as far as I'll go.
That's great. But there is a point. There is a valid point somewhere in there that I think. Again,
listen, folks, watch the film and make your own. You'll be sitting there. He should do this. He should do this, and then maybe he'll do it. Maybe he won't. Maybe if it's too late, well, just like, what are you doing?
Maybe you're taking a nap.
My biggest thing was I don't know, no spoilers, but I'm sure it's not spoilers. 127 hours. You kind of know how long he's doing. He's got you got to drink your own piss at one point.
Right.
And just a simple thing, in my opinion. You drink the piss first while you still have some water.
Oh, right.
Because with the heat and everything, you drink it at night when it's at its coldest, and it's going to just go down the best. And you then also retain water more with that. But he just waits to drink the piss. And it's like, why do you want days old? Like, you might as well get the fresh and just wait till it cools down at night. Yep. And then you still have water to do. Just the small things that could have been avoided. Anyway.
Aaron, you'll have an email in your inbox. Hopefully, we'll get you.
He's a good guy.
You on the show.
He's a good guy. He's a good guy.
It's so good. But even though maybe some of the survival stakes might lack something when you're watching this movie, I do think actually the other side of this is what worked for me. It was just the use of that internal headspace of the character to tell a psychological backstory. That was just definitely the most interesting part. I think this is interesting because it basically allowed Boyle to create just a highlight reel of just like big scenes in this character's life that he can pull from in the edit. Almost no work needed. He just pulls at the emotional climax of any of these memories that he's having, and guess what? That's now in the ammo belt to just like throw into the edit or throw into these like psychological breakdown scenes. It keeps things fresh as well because while we are literally stuck in a ravine the whole time with Franco, we're not actually stuck in the ravine. I feel like in the scenario where this was maybe a little bit more survival focused, I still wouldn't take away these psychological elements.
No, I wouldn't either. No.
Yeah. I feel like that was an important, back and forth, A plot, B plot kind of stuff. So... But,
I would do them differently, but no, absolutely. I think you have to have those.
Yeah. Some sort of break or some sort of insight, really, into the character without him actually being in the scene. But this is also where some of the drama can be built up, and that might not have been all the way to the true story of how things played out. I did research a little bit that Ralston, Aaron, was complaining a little bit that he wanted it to be a little bit more realistic to his true story.
So Danny was straying.
Slightly. He was apparently Aaron was all right with it by the end, but in the production of it, he was a little iffy on it.
Okay.
Again, I think that kind of insight comes from just read the book. Unfortunately, that's just not something that we had the time and the bandwidth to do this week. But interesting story there, especially if you're a fan of this movie. That I'd be curious, what are the lines that Boyle gets right and, are true to life a little bit more. But that's honestly where my appreciation of this film lies, is on the psychological side, because it's really not because I don't empathize with Aaron Ralston and his story, but it's because of how it's about this movie being made into a movie versus a documentary. There's something there of just like, where does this need the dramatization, and where can this just be a really good documentary about a harrowing experience? You know what I mean?
Sure, I know, but sure. This is a really good movie. Just make it more realistic.
Yeah.
And make it quieter, and it's fine. And it's a really harrowing movie.
Yeah. But with that said, we're going to go ahead and give 127 Hours 2010 a 56.
56%?
I really just returned to just like, that's a kind of, unfortunately, just a once and done type of movie.
Honestly, I completely agree.
Yeah.
Here's I think the shame of it is, well, I mean, I love this part of the country as well. I'm kind of excited to watch this.
Sure, yeah.
And it's a harrowing story. What are you going to do? You going to die, or are you going to get off the rock? And what do you have to do? What are you going to do? There's a crazy story in there. So that's great. Mm-hmm. This movie, not that great.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. You know what I mean? Like, of course, there's some type of redeeming aspect to it, but it has nothing to do with Danny Boyle and what he's got going on.
It definitely has something to do with Franco. We were laughing at Franco.
Yeah, we were laughing at Franco a bit.
Empathizing with Franco.
And that's a problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's actually a huge problem.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, all right. So moving on, 5 years later now, Steve Jobs dies in 2011.
Yep.
In 2015, we have Steve Jobs, the movie, come out. Mm-hmm. Of course, directed by Danny Boyle. There was another movie just called Jobs.
Yep.
And that's when Ashton Kutcher played Steve. Mm-hmm. But this is Michael Fassbender.
Yep.
Who I think is really well casted, actually, as a Steve Jobs. Seeing his career after this,
sure,
and he just becomes kind of a stone cold either killer or prick, or you know what I mean,
or Magneto, or
I think this kind of fits in. Being a psychopathic Steve Jobs,
absolutely,
which is kind of what he is. So, like I said, 2015, Steve Jobs. I know we're only focusing on a certain time in his career, certain decade and a half, actually, of his story.
Yep.
So, but other than that, you take it away. And I have watched this. It's been a while, but I do remember the beats of it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I really do want to start with the kind of the landscape of these two twin movies coming around this time. Within a few years of each other, we honestly infamously got two separate Steve Jobs biopics after his death in 2011. Like you said, Tom, Jobs in 2013. It stars Ashton Kutcher and was largely trashed by critics, while Steve Jobs from 2015, and what we're talking about today, starred Michael Fassbender and almost universally praised as the quote-unquote real biopic.
It's so true. Yeah. Jobs, I mean, it came out in 2013. I think some people thought maybe it was too soon. It's like, let the dust settle a little bit more.
Oh, interesting.
It being 2 years-ish, you know?
Yeah.
And then when you get Ashton Kutcher... It was a problem from the get-go. It really was.
Yeah. I can't say I'm really curious to check that one out either, especially after watching this.
No.
Maybe a slight morbid curiosity, knowing that it's kind of bad. But personally, I've really never seen either of these movies. Not to mention some of my lack of interest in these, captain of industry docudramas that come out in the 2010s. I think about The Founder. And I think about a lot of the more recent brand movies like Air.
Yeah, Blackberry.
Yeah, absolutely. But oddly enough, production on both movies, started almost immediately after Steve Jobs' death in 2011. And while Danny Boyle's project might have been late to the punch by 2 years, he had the true source material, adapting the rights to Steve Jobs' biography, and one hell of a writing partner in Aaron Sorkin to adapt it. Steve Jobs is A little snarky here. A big Oscar baity kind of talking in rooms kind of movie.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
It really is just that kind of movie. But aside from that snark, refreshingly breaks from the mold that we expect from this type of story. And this type of story being, the big award season biopic. Michael Fassbender plays Jobs himself, cold but far from uncaring, precisely because he knows exactly what he wants. Over the course of this film, we see Steve Jobs before 3 pivotal product launches in his ever-shifting career. Throughout this, we glimpse who the man might be under the myth. Most importantly, how any great comes with cracks and flaws, a topic that we talked about quite a bit when we covered Patton now a good couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. While our chapters might be marked by the movements in the burgeoning computer industry, every second of this story is about giving us a window into Steve's personal struggles and, most importantly, the relationships he affects with his indifference. Jobs fails to see things any other way than his own, though, because in life there are great players that make up an orchestra, but someone still has to conduct the orchestra. My enjoyment of this movie was all in structure of how the story was told. I really appreciate the choices Sorkin makes to show Steve's arrogance, mainly in selecting unconventional stumbles and sidesteps in his career as the 3 main highlights we get in the movie. The 3 product launches are 1984's Macintosh, 1988's failed NeXT computer, and 1998's iMac. Let me say, among the countless biopics feeling exactly the same way, this was so refreshing. Instead of the story just being a pile of wins rising to the top, we are constantly shown Jobs under pressure and if he has it when it counts most. Frankly, this is a pitfall we can see the lesser version of this movie make, with the Ashton Kutcher version using the launch of the iPod as its kind of predictable climax, its predictable high note. More and more, I find these kind of big arcing story structures to be boring, just trying to show us a full lifetime and still have the same impact as small moments. I'm here to say for biopics, instead, give me a small window. Give me the most defining moments in this person's life that make it worth telling the story in the first place, Okay. I'm tired of the big arc, and this does not fall into that big arc.
So, but you kind of, that's hypocritical of what we said about Timothée Chalamet doing a quick four-year stint.
That is true.
As Bob Dylan.
Dylan does have a lot to evolve over.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that is true. That is true. But I think at very least, Sorkin's adaptation...
I agree with you, by the way.
Yeah.
And just to go back to that film, it was too small. It was a little bit too narrowly focused.
Yeah, maybe there's a difference there. But I think just Sorkin understands this is a key to adapting such a big figure, such a figure that people have opinions on, whether they worked with him or, whether they were affected by him in some way, or just as most of us just on the sidelines of, watching him. I think Sorkin understands that conflict just gives us the opportunity to learn the most. And that's where I was just kind of reflecting on this. Of just like, this is the polar opposite of, like I said, a pile of wins. I don't want my biopic to just be win after win after win. Bohemian Rhapsody,
honestly,
a great example of just like, I don't know if Queen produced hit after hit. They just walked in the studio and it's just hit after hit. That's fine. Yeah. But it does not make it needs conflict. It needs a reason to hook me.
Especially everybody having an idea who Steve Jobs is.
Yes.
I mean, the stories are abound.
Yes. Yeah. For real. But yeah, I guess somewhere in the middle between...
No, it makes sense.
What was even the Timothée Chalamet Bob Dylan movie called? Christ.
It's funny. I'm sitting a complete unknown.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Isn't it?
You didn't say that.
But I can see your point where I don't want to cover an entire life because we got one film here to do it in.
Yeah.
And at that point, when you do have so much time to cover, you're probably only going to do the hits, the highlights.
Yeah.
And you need to see the faltering and this, that, and Yeah, okay, and this covers 14 years.
Yeah,
So
and
I think it's a bit of a sweet spot.
Right. But where I'm kind of reflecting on is that it's only falters. It's only fails basically.
Right.
Each of these segments, there is way more bitter than there is sweet. And I think that was just really interesting how to structure this.
I think my only issue with this, and maybe when things are done like this, it is the 14 period of his life, but there's a 14-year period before it and a 14-year after it.
Yeah, right.
Roughly.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And then so when you call a film Steve Jobs, what is the film actually doing? Is it really about these 3 events, or is it just like, I'm trying to tell you who the man was with this 14 years, and you get an idea of who he is still when he first started, and you get the idea of the man he came to be in the 20 by the time he passed away.
Sure.
Like, what, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a lot to be told. There's a lot left on the table of what Steve Jobs did.
Sure.
Did the film do a good enough job to tell us who he is?
I think so, in the sense of just like, again, we learn through like conflict where he has the skills to pay the bills.
Yeah.
When he's under pressure. I think there is still a point of just like the big arching story of like a biopic. I feel like in that method, you hopefully will end up with the takeaway of just like, wow, this is why this is a person worth remembering and worth having the biopic made off of.
Right.
I think that just here, Sorkin went just such a different direction, and maybe not that different a direction, but again, just the countless landscapes, the countless biopics. We talk about biopics every year on the podcast now because they come around for Oscar season.
Oh, yeah.
This was...
Bruce Springsteen coming up, absolutely.
Right, exactly. This was just refreshing in the sense of like, wow, we're seeing him stumble constantly. He may be confident. He may be thinking in his head that he's taking away wins from this, almost paired side by side with it, and scenes are kind of a different viewpoint of it then. So for the 2 Oscar nominations this received, both were for acting performances of Michael Fassbender playing Steve Jobs and Kate Winslet playing his right-hand woman, Joanna Hoffman. If I'm being honest, I really didn't have many notes for Winslet. No hate against her. I just think you could argue that there is probably an even 3-way tie between her, Seth Rogen, and Jeff Daniels, all just being excellent supporting performances for Fassbender to bounce off of, It really goes back to, a talking in rooms kind of movie. You got to have a good back and forth.
Yeah,
you can't
absolutely.
just be one person holding that up. On the other hand, Fassbender as Jobs, I think, is literally the whole hook for the film and is worthy of the nomination. He's basically playing David from the Alien sequels.
Playing every character now.
Yeah,
he's playing the guy in Black Bag.
Oh, right.
He's playing the guy in the what is it, the killer?
Yeah, the killer. Yeah,
He's just this guy.
He's analytical. Yeah. But once again, he does a great job at just showing the arrogance of Jobs, or at least how he kind of warps events into his own narrative. Let me say, though, I do think this type of performance, I was watching these, and I feel like across the board, there's a lot of great acting performances in here. Jeff Daniels, too. Like, kind of a shame he didn't get a nomination for this. There's a great scene that they're going head-to-head over this. I think it just works because it's only as good as the material. I think it works because nearly all the dialogue itself is excellent, and is ultimately why I would still call this a little bit Oscar bait. It's about material first, giving the platform.
It's Oscar bait, absolutely.
To actors. This is they're not a soapbox, but the platform for the performances. So. But a really great biopic, even though, being a chronic hater of Apple that I am, I really did enjoy this quite a bit. Regardless of how you view the importance of innovators like this, or where you honestly fall on who deserves more credit in the orchestra, quote unquote, it's about what matters in the little moments that define our character, shown best through the struggles over the wins. I feel like Sorkin's understanding of that is what separates this biopic from a formula that I've commented on so much and well sick of. And I think this is worth checking out for that exact reason. We're going to go ahead and give Steve Jobs 2015 a 79.
Wow, 79%. That is a very good movie.
Yeah, I thought it was really good.
That's a very good movie, Vin.
Yeah. It's hard to maybe explain the little moments that we get.
I gotta watch it again.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you, this was really great. Again, go in understanding, that it's not just like, oh, Another win for Steve Jobs. No, this is like another stumble, and let's see what Steve Jobs has
to get out of it.
To get out of
it.
You
Okay. Wow. Well, that's a huge endorsement right there. 79% for Steve Jobs, folks. Go check it out from 2015. But hey, folks, if you are enjoying the daily ratings just as much as Vin enjoyed Steve Jobs, then don't forget that the daily ratings is completely producer supported. We are listener supported. We're not going to have any advertising on this site. We're not going to have any paywalls or tier structures on this site, meaning you have to pay a little bit money or pay a certain amount to get a certain amount of extra content. There's no extra content here. Everything is out there for everyone to enjoy, to look at, to listen to. It's there. But if you're using it, if you're enjoying yourself, coming back to the podcast week after week, checking out the website to see if a film is worth a watch, we look at that as value in your pocket. So can you send us value back in our pocket? It's value for value. What you do is you go to thedailyratings.com, you head to the donations tab, and everything's right there for you. Through your monetary support, through your donations, you become an actual legitimate producer of the Daily Ratings. And with that, of course, you can send in a producer note, and we bring you into the conversation. That's how we're doing it. So, for instance, Linda, you were the executive producer once again of the Daily Ratings. Linda Schiller came in again, Vin, with her monthly movie ticket.
Excellent.
So, executive producer of 192, Linda. We continue to thank you so much. You're our only monthly producer so far, so we really appreciate you. And as always, anytime you've got something you want to say, got something you want to ask or add to, send us an email, send us a producer note, and of course, we'll honor that. Because, folks, when you become a producer, send in a producer note. This can be questions, comments, critiques. It can be ask us anything, add to a conversation or start a conversation, whatever you want. If you're producing at the Daily Ratings, we want to hear from you. We want to bring you into the conversation. You can email us your note then at tom.vin@thedailyratings.com. Again, that's our email. And this is the time that we'll take a moment, say thanks, and hear what you have to say. Again, it's thedailyratings.com. Head to the donations tab if you want to be an executive producer of next week's episode for 193. Okay, Vin, with that, let's go on. We're headed to the theaters. Danny Boyle back with this franchise. It's 28 years later. We are not covering 28 weeks later. We did cover 28 days later. That was on our zombie special. So, folks, you can just go ahead and search, zombie special, whatever. Search this movie. It'll be there. It's a very early recording.
Oh, I love that special, though.
That's good. I think I haven't listened to it in a while because I refuse to listen to it because I just don't want to hear myself on the podcast.
Oh,
But I remember it was a joy to record. It felt like we were doing something. We felt like we were creating a good product.
Yes.
And also, that's what the value for value is. Like, is it a good product that Vin and I are getting you?
Yep.
I remember back then when we recorded that very, very early on, it felt good. It felt like we were finally getting something down here.
Yep.
And a great episode. I mean, it is a good episode. But anyway, so we covered that already. If you want to hear what Vin had to say about that, we are skipping 28 weeks, and from what it sounds like is you don't need to watch it. It's not designated homework to watch before you go see this film. With that, it is 28 years later, kind of, but at least it's the name of the film.
Yeah, a couple years too early, if you ask me.
But you get into it, break it down this film. I said on the news show that the opinions are very varied on this.
Oh, it's all over the map.
It has some a great normal scores, Rotten Tomatoes, of course. You just can't trust anything.
Sure.
Then you listen to this person or that person. It is a bit of a roller coaster. It is a bit all over the place.
Yeah.
So put your stamp on it, put your mark, set us up for 28 years later.
Well, folks, we've, of course, talked plenty about this prior to release because it simply had one of the best cut trailers of the last 5 years. And like you said, Tom, the first film in the series had a spot on our Essential Zombie Movies special, and I still believe it still very much plays a part in the landscape of, what we evolve as, one of the most iconic movie monsters as the zombie.
Oh, the premise for that special is dynamite.
Yeah. I was super excited because for Danny Boyle, obviously would love to do an idea like this week's 5 spot, but above all, collabing with one of my all-time faves, Alex Garland, back again writing for the project. Now, walking into this, I was aware of a lot of critical buzz, but unfortunately, I could not avoid some very distinct chatter online calling this an absolute mess. Specifically, I heard that the editing and camera choices Boyle had been using as a selling point for the film in press was actually its Achilles heel. This sparked a little bit of fear. I was definitely a little scared going into this, and not for the rage zombies, but also a little excitement as well. Honestly, I thought among the endless ranks of zombie movies, the idea of something being creatively divisive made me all the more interested to kind of call heads or tails for this, and more importantly, like cover this for the podcast. When a movie is almost like accepted good across the board or accepted bad across the board, that really doesn't interest me. It's the ones where it's like, this is a little gray. This is where like it maybe matters what I say.
Put your mark on it. Absolutely.
The Band-Aid needs to be ripped, though. This was, in fact, an absolute mess. This kind of ruined my weekend, honestly. I think it stung so much because we've been talking about this trailer for such a long time now, like 6 months.
A lot of anticipation.
I almost assumed it was like, this is going to be one of the best movies of the year. Let's just go kind of almost get it over with. Let's get it done.
A big piece of that was what you just said, too, earlier, which was Alex Garland was back writing.
Yeah.
Alex Garland, who has just absolutely catapulted his own career in directing and writing. He took a lot of time to get off the director's chair just to be a writer for this again.
Yeah.
And, some of it, I'm sure, is on his shoulders.
It's a lot, yeah. Definitely some of it is on his shoulders, specifically one very detrimental piece. Now, listen, some of the directing and editing choices can be explained fully by continuing the feel of the original 28 Days Later, which Boyle has spoken extensively about. 28 Days Later, boy. Sorry if I mix up days, weeks, and years between these names. That was another great example of Boyle doing a lot of filming techniques, a lot of digital editing, a lot of things that other directors would either stick their nose up at or not have the balls to do.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So his mentality, and he spoke to plenty about this on the press circuit, that he kind of wanted to capture that again. Not necessarily the same techniques, but kind of have a no fear going in and trying a lot of new stuff. But I have to admit, there are a jarring amount of techniques used in the first act specifically that just feel horrible. Really horrible. My first note was that the editing feels very screwy, and I honestly think that's the perfect way to put it, screwy. I really come back to, man, this feels a little screwy. Seriously, though, a dizzying amount of techniques and camera shots are used. Everything from bullet time kill cams to historic B-roll spliced in the edit to night vision scenes a la Zone of Interest. It is all over the map, and worse yet, all of this gimmick gets in the way of capturing real performances in the moment. I cannot believe this is one piece that I have not heard complaints online about, but there is downright atrocious ADR overdubbing, like the lines overdubbed over action scenes. Aaron Taylor Johnson specifically, in nearly every action scene, sounds
like
horrible.
He's in a studio. He's standing in a studio?
Worse. Sounds like it was recorded on one of the iPhones after the shot was done that he used for the shot. Like, it's Madam Web levels bad ADR. Like, this, it sounds so artificial. It took me, I just cannot hear, among all the complaints about this movie online, I cannot believe no one has really, again, specifically these scenes with Aaron Taylor Johnson in the first act. I mean, the ADR it's like they didn't have any sound equipment that day at all. And it sounds horrifically
You're
bad.
right. I have not heard this yet.
So bad. This is a lot. And I'm sorry I haven't said anything about the story yet, but the filmmaking is that in your face with it as well. So stick with me, please. The point I'm trying to make is don't watch this movie. It's because of the screwing... too harsh. Too in. It's because of these screwy directing choices. It is because it is a hidden and secret start to an entirely new trilogy. And
which that's not spoilers. That's out there. That's I
honestly didn't know that, but it doesn't make it any better knowing it. Lastly, and I hate to say it, maybe above all, it has one of the worst endings to a film I've seen since the podcast has started. I mean, this is worse than Babylon, with like the TikTok montage at the end of Babylon. This is maybe worse than the end of Megalopolis. It's a really bad ending. It's a really bad ending.
Wow.
Almost like the equivalent of a fart joke at a funeral.
Wow.
It's terrible. 28 years later, though, is, of course, your zombie horror. but eventually settles into kind of an emotional hero's journey, seeing a boy become a man within the decaying and advancing world of the rage virus. Aaron Taylor Johnson plays a problematic father to his son Spike, played by Alfie Williams. While initially it's kind of unclear who our protagonist is, and something very unfortunately we will come back to at the very end, Spike's journey of maturity is really the heart of the story. Among the many things I'll say bad about this, oddly enough, Alfie Williams is not a bad kid actor.
That's huge.
I did not mind him being the main character here.
That's a big deal in and of itself.
Yeah, that's a win.
I bet you were sweating bullets in the first 15 minutes. Being like, oh no, it's
No.
about the kid?
I don't know what I was thinking. This was a whirlwind. So much is in front loaded too with all these techniques. Like, it eventually calms down.
Which in itself is annoying.
Yeah, right, because it's not even like consistently throughout, but we get the most jarring editing and camera choices all in the first act, which is, tough. The surviving world of this rage virus is harsh through our boy's eyes. He is not really wanting to follow his father's hunter-gatherer footsteps and just wanting to provide for his sick mother, played by Jodie Comer. When young Spike finds out there's a doctor somewhere in the infected mainland to help his mom, nothing against. Sorry,
No, it's good.
I threw in a couple of things with Trainspotting too. I did not do a Scottish accent. I briefly considered doing a Scottish accent.
No, it's too tough. You would be terrible at it.
Thank you for being honest there. But nothing can stop him from leaving once he finds that there's a doctor that is maybe a glimpse, a chance for his mom in this kind of step backwards world that has happened from this rage virus. Not even the fear of a decaying and scarily evolving horde of the undead. I think all my praise for this goes towards seeing how Boyle and Garland are progressing their brand of zombies. These are actually not zombies. We talked about on the special, it's a rage virus, it's the infected. That itself is kind of evolving what zombies are as a monster within film. But ultimately, it's their own lore. It's not a zombie. Almost like what we see George Romero do with his own Living Dead franchise, later era stories show how society continues in the apocalypse and is very different than like the inciting incident that so many zombie films are about. This is also new creative ground for the zombie itself. I would say in the time between the second and the third movie, the rage virus has been fully contained to the British Isles, leaving a population to fend for themselves for over 28 years. I think that is a great hook. What the hell happened in the UK over 28 years of zombies existing?
I think that's a good enough time, too, because there is something to be said about 28 days and 28 weeks, maybe not there being enough jump.
Sure.
This is like, we can have some societies forming here.
Yeah. We can have unknowns going into this.
It's like the jumps in the 8 movies.
In the 8 movies? Planet 8 movies.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, the 8 movies. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's like, that gets me excited about it. Just like, wow, I don't know what this world is going to be.
There you go.
You have a wonderful blank slate. You have a blank check to be, you make this world whatever you want.
That's why everybody was so psyched after the trailer.
Yeah.
It still had that excitement about it.
Absolutely. For survival, hunter-gatherer roles are needed once again, so we see society kind of take a step backwards intentionally. This also creates the internal crisis for Spike as our main character. He wants to kind of turn away from his father's example of masculinity and find his own path, and most importantly, provide for his mother. The series-infected rage zombies also have their own shifting lore, too. I won't go into too much of it for spoiler reasons, but this huge gap in time, once again, is a blank check for them to develop their monster, their brand of zombie in unique and defining ways. And I think even with my thoughts on the film, hopefully by the end of this trilogy, really separates it from just another zombie movie, just another Walking Dead, just a yada yada type of stuff, which I feel like there really is burnout within everyone that likes zombie movies.
Yeah,
even
we're getting down to the end of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Honestly, I had a lot more notes on acting performances, but I had to cut some. I mean, this this is running long already, and we were going to be here all day if I really did a breakdown of all all my praises and issues of the acting, but a few quick ones. Ralph Fiennes was the biggest draw for me here, and predictably really elevated the material in every scene he was in. Also, one of the cooler elements of this like progressing apocalypse I mentioned. For some reason as well, I can't stop thinking about Conan's joke at the Oscar, calling him Ralph.
Oh, what?
He's like,
even I do that sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, I do. But he's like, nominated for the third time. If he doesn't win this time, we get to call him Ralph. Which is like,
that's good.
So golden, so great. Aaron Taylor Johnson was all right. The kid, Alfie Williams, pretty good, but I guess we'll see by the end of the trilogy. Unfortunately, I did not think Jodie Comer was very good in this. I think Jodie Comer is actually a bad actress outright.
Oh, interesting.
She's the one recently we saw in Bike Riders doing, the heavy.
It's like, she's good, but then after the entire
Jersey.
movie, we're sick of it.
Yeah, I was actually
interesting, very interesting.
Embarrassingly, I was originally going to say she needs to stop doing accents, but then I found out she was British, so maybe just stop acting.
Her screen time percentage, though,
a lot, pretty much all the second act, because basically, we have Alfie, or I'm sorry, the kid Spike with his dad. First act.
Oh.
Second act, he separates from his dad, goes with his mom to the mainland.
Yep.
Goes with his mom. Yeah. Really just, I don't know. I mean, she's got some emotion here. I just don't think she's a good actress. I'm sorry to say.
That's just fine.
Really
that's just fine.
Folks, 2 out of the 3 reasons why I cannot recommend this. I mean, I also can't explain it for spoiler reasons. The range of quality and audience reactions on this is huge, though. And I personally find myself falling back on the simple question of, one, who would I actually recommend this to? Honestly, no one. And would I ever watch this movie again myself? And that is like really like a flat out no.
Wow.
I think when the second one comes out, I will specifically avoid watching the first one to give that movie a living, breathing chance at me actually enjoying it.
You've got to put 28 years later in the corner. I'll tell you what, I might have to watch this movie, Vin.
It is. And in that sense, it's like, well, you gotta make your mind up on it. Don't let me inform the movie opinions.
I think I might watch this movie.
Yeah.
I've never seen the first one.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, honestly, the zombie thing. It's just not in the not two shoes genre.
That's definitely not a two shoes genre.
And I think what worse way to go about this franchise than jumping first thing to 28 years later? It sounds perfect for me.
I don't know. Yeah, I honestly, there's definitely no reason to watch weeks later. I mean, not even just supporting our choice for the episode,
which is important just to say that too.
Yeah,
because I don't want people thinking that they need to go and like watch this other movie. Am I going to be lost? Do I do YouTube catch up? And it's like no.
Yeah. Going light on it, there is basically a line of dialogue said to kind of play nicely with it. Otherwise than that, honestly, no punches held. It's Boyle is overwriting the second one.
Well, this is like J.J. Abrams when he did Rise of Skywalker.
Yes,
and he retconned stuff over Return of the Last Jedi.
Yes,
of Rian
absolutely.
Johnson. Yeah,
they almost had to
actually, and I should say, right. I should also say that J.J. Abrams retconned his own failures too in A Force Awakens.
So true. He gets a very unique opportunity to say way too much in Rise of Skywalker. But yeah, is this something that you should probably make your own mind up on? Yeah. Don't let me kind of inform your own opinions on this one. But I have to say, again, I'm leaning back on those two very fundamental questions. Would I recommend this to anyone? I'm not even zombie movie fans. I think it's just a no-go, and I really don't want to watch it myself. It is loud. It is very messy sometimes, and front-loaded with these most grating choices. The worst this film has to offer is like very surprisingly in the first act, and then it calms its tits, like it calms itself the hell down, and it's like, okay, maybe could it just spread it out a little bit more? Some of these techniques, some of these editing choices. It's in the moments that it calms and focuses in to make the apocalypse personal. I did find it had some real emotion in telling a smaller story. I feel like by second act, by the times Ralph Fiennes is introduced, there's something there that I was like, okay, this kind of works, but it is a damn shame, and I mean that, a damn shame that the last 10 minutes is an absolute kick in the nuts that deflates any emotion that this story has earned. I am not joking. This ending knocked the movie down a good 10, maybe 15 points for me.
No.
It was that catastrophic.
The last 10 minutes?
Absolutely. It's unreal. I don't understand. It should have been, this has been a dialogue online, it should have been a post-credits scene because you separate the tonal difference of it with something, and also ultimately it's like a sequel bait too. So it's like up until that point, if you're not aware that it's a trilogy, that's the only thing you have to go on for it being a trilogy. And I think it's a horrible hook.
Yeah.
But I guess we'll have to wait until the sequel to talk about that last 10 minutes a little bit more. We're going to go ahead and regretfully give 28 years later a 35. I'm glad you have joy.
35%. What this is, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
This was such a disappointment. I mean,
Wow.
Again, I was walking into this thing saying, easy, one of the best
my God.
movies of the year. How could they have a trailer this good and it be this bad?
I mean, this is, you know what this is. This has Kane Mutiny written all over it.
Yes.
All over it.
Absolutely.
I mean, I hate to foreshadow already. Give you a tip-off for the end of the year, but
Yep.
this film, we have been looking forward to this. The trailer was cut so incredibly.
So good.
And I will say there are some people loving this film or don't really have problems with it. And for you to be at a 35.
Yeah.
Well, you certainly made a stamp here. You certainly put your mark down, that's for sure.
Honestly, I mean, I've heard a lot harsher. I've heard people
you have
say that, like, if you recommend this movie, you can't be trusted.
Right.
But
I'm thinking of a few critics in particular. That's hilarious.
There's something here that there is good and bad. It really isn't cut and dry. This is messy. It's screwy, but in that has occasional moments where it strikes a good chord, or like I said, the emotion in the second act to third act hits something real, hits a little bit of a tearjerker. But to have that, man, almost all of my praise I could throw at the slight stride this movie falls into. These last 10 minutes, man, it just really it really ruined.
It was just a
everything.
nail. It was a nail in the coffin.
It was. Oof.
I'll tell you what.
A kick in the nuts. I wrote that. I meant it. It is a kick in the nuts.
That's hilarious. I mean, 35%. It's not easy to get below 40% here.
For sure.
With these films that have
Even
been coming
this
out for
year.
2020. That's what I mean by 2025.
Yeah.
35%. Boy, my apologies. My apologies to you for that.
My apologies, Danny Boyle. For this is exactly what happened with the Coppola episode. We have like a raving, like such a positive episode, and then the cliff dive, the Marianas Trench of quality.
We started the episode with my apologies to Tom Hanks, and like Tom Hanks says, Danny Boyle is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get with this guy.
That's
you never know what you're gonna get.
You never know what you're gonna get. Absolutely.
I mean, he's all over the map with his scores.
Yeah.
And going back to, because you love the first one, 28 Days.
Oh,
well, everybody does, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Wild.
Wow.
I mean, for what it's worth, honestly, like I said, kind of make your mind up on the film.
It's a sub 2-hour movie, so it's not like it's 2.5 hours.
Sure. Feels a lot longer. Yeah. I'll leave that there. But I would say, don't spend money on this. Sure, watch it out of morbid curiosity. Sure, watch it to make your own mind up critically or creatively speaking. But this is like a wait.
Well,
like I said, 28 years, maybe not. A little soon. Maybe need a little more years in the oven. Maybe they should have just waited for the actual 28-year anniversary on this.
Well,
one.
morbid curiosity is where I'm at now.
Yeah.
But 35% is pretty. You're not really wavering when you give a score to 35%.
Yeah.
So very good, Vin. Wow. Looking at all these scores, anything you want to touch on, highlight, anything for next week, roll credits? What do you want to do?
Well, let's talk next week. We're not doing any kind of big, ambitious episode, but we do have. Two very big releases in their own right. F1, very excited for. Joseph Kopinski, coming off of Maverick. That's definitely a big blank check movie. He could probably do whatever he wanted.
And it was a big check. Apple, years in the making for that film.
Oh, that's right. Apple's behind it, too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then we have Megan 2. Looks batshit. Like, looks just
It does look super crazy.
Yeah, they look like they're going like almost like a later era Chucky, maybe like a Gremlins 2 route where they're not only in on the joke, but now they're actively cracking jokes. So, I don't know what to get from it, but we are going to be covering it. There's two big releases, probably most exciting at all. I know you're on the edge of your seat, but we're going to be starting John Wayne July.
John Wayne July starts next week, ladies and gentlemen. Stay tuned. And now also, Vin and I have been talking about it. The summers are always so busy. Sometimes we can't even get to something. We're going to focus on John Wayne a lot, but for the next 2 months, it'll be, if we have an open slot, it will generally just be a Western.
Yes.
So it won't necessarily just be John Wayne, because there's some Westerns on Vin's list that we want to start kind of chipping away at. You know what? Myself included, too.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot there that I want to get through on John Wayne, but equally, there's a growing Western list in researching, John Wayne type of Westerns and whatnot.
There's a lot to cover. Yeah. It was a weak point on the site, and I'm glad we're making some corrections. I'm excited. But no, Vin, thank you so much for watching all these films. Thanks for stopping by here tonight. Folks at home, we'll run it down one more time. Do you want to take bets on Mithrigan? How well it's going to do? I really think it's going to make a lot of money.
Yeah, I think it's going to make a lot of money, too.
Okay.
Because they've had a...
I don't know what a lot of money means. That's what I'm trying to calculate.
That's so true. I mean, Blumhouse money, but like where on Blumhouse money?
High.
High. I think high. Absolutely.
Actually...
I mean, I don't...
This will be...
don't want it to do well.
I think this will be in the top 3 best-selling films of Blumhouse.
Wow.
Because I'm assuming one of them is Saw.
Yes, and that's a huge sample size. Who knows what the top.
Okay, I take that back. I just think that this is going to do surprisingly well.
Yeah,
I mean, the first one came out in Dumpuary.
Yeah,
you know what I mean,
and then did decent.
Right.
So.
Okay. Anyway, so we have Trainspotting with an 85%, Slumdog Millionaire with a 74, 127 hours with 56, Steve Jobs with a 79, and then 28 years later with a 35%. Certainly the most surprising of the week. Folks, it's always a blast hanging out with you every week. We're glad that you come back week after week. And as always, we will see you back here next Thursday on the Daily Ratings Podcast. And hey, if you enjoyed the podcast, if you would, give us a good rating or get the word out and tell a friend about us. Just a reminder that Daily Ratings is completely producer supported. We want to stay away from advertising, and we don't want to have any paywalls or tier structures or subscriptions. It's all just value for value. So, are you finding value in what we're doing here at the Daily Ratings? Then become a producer and donate whatever amount of value that is. Just go to the donations tab on thedailyratings.com, and while you're there, be sure to check out the massive amount of films that Vince has rated. So thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you next time on the Daily Ratings Podcast.